What's up, everyone? It's Sebastian Castillo here, and or should I say, Labas, as they say here in Lithuania. I'm in a gorgeous park, very clean, very orderly. I wonder why that is. And I wanted to share some quick thoughts. I just watched a video by a guy, I think his channel is Non-Native Entrepreneur. If I'm not mistaken, the dude's Polish and he lives in the UK now for 15 something years. And he's making an argument about why people should not leave. People should not escape from these Western countries that in the past few years especially have been really cracking down and making life difficult for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people, especially if you're watching this channel, will agree that the quality of life has really deteriorated in past years in all these different aspects. But he's arguing that you shouldn't leave and that there are ways to fix things and bring them back to their former glory and even better. And one of his key points is that being an immigrant is very difficult to it becomes difficult to assimilate when you go to a different country, especially when the culture, the language are extremely different compared to your own. And as an extension of that, developing a community or making friends, getting involved with other local people is often a major challenge for a lot of folks. Some people never actually break through and are able to kind of get that sort of thing figured out, which is sad. But it doesn't mean it has to be the case for you, right? This is another case of someone coming on YouTube and sharing their opinions as if they are a fact. And the fact is that taxes are going up, that wages are stagnant, that immigration, especially where I'm from in Canada, is not slowing down anytime soon, and it is a problem. And probably the most overarching fact of all is that people in power do not want to give up their power. And if they see that they can squeeze people, especially like they did in 2020, and like they are now with the economy, but people will just stay and continue to deal with it. They'll get in debt, they'll take a second job, whatever it is, they'll do Uber Eats, and they'll continue to tolerate it and dutifully pay their taxes and continue to exist. They're going to continue to squeeze. I remember seeing a little comic in the newspaper years and years ago, when I still read newspapers here and there, concerning the gas prices in Canada, and they were ridiculous. And it's a one panel comic where it's two executives up on the fourth, fifth floor of a building looking down through the window at a guy filling up at the gas station. And they're rubbing their hands gleefully saying, "Oh my God, he's still buying it. Let's jack up the price even more." And that's a perfect illustration of what's going on. The people in power know that they can continue to squeeze, and when it comes to essentials like gas and electricity, food, housing, people are going to pay for it. And if some people want to leave, then there's going to be some immigrants that they can bring in who either already have money and are happy to get the chance to live in a Western country and enjoy that quickly declining quality of life, or that they can subsidize some immigrants to come in there and, give them this impression that they're going to enjoy living in this clean, civilized Western country, when in reality they're honeypotting them, right? And they are basically kind of easing them into just another version of slavery, right? Because you see a lot of these immigrants from third world countries, they're not working in the highest capacities. They're not doing really high-end jobs, really skilled jobs. They're not the most intelligent people. They're getting slotted into and relegated to just working menial, labor-intensive jobs that anyone with a two-digit IQ can do. So the guy's whole argument, again, is, hey, you should stay and fight. You should stay and improve things. You should strengthen your community because it's impossible to go anywhere else and fully assimilate. You know, if you're from Canada, if you're from the UK, if you're from the US, even if you go somewhere else, you learn the language, you learn the history, so on and so forth. You're not from there. You didn't go to school there. You weren't raised there. You cannot substitute it for anything. You can't just swap it out and completely erase your history and build it back from the ground up. It doesn't work like that. And he's right. But at the same time, I think he underestimates the idea of being able to go and build somewhere else, of being able to go and form a new circle. Right? It wasn't the easiest for me in Mexico, mostly because of financial constraints. But once the money started to come in and I was able to go and travel and meet new people, then slowly but surely I was able to get in touch with more people, and I learned the language. And of course it helps that I have some heritage from that country. But still, it wasn't like I was just greeted with open arms. People were still skeptical. I don't look like the average Mexican either. So it was still quite tough to kind of break into that, and even to date, as I've shared ad nauseum on this channel, which is another thing, which is another avenue that the guy doesn't touch on. Dating and getting involved with women in a place is the fast track, oftentimes, to assimilation, to becoming recognized as part of the community. Because women are, dare I say it, the backbone of most communities. Yeah, guys can get together, they can go work on projects and whatnot, but it's really the women that contribute that nurturing energy and that social energy, right? Everybody loves to have, in brackets, beautiful women around, right? I'm not a big fan of ugly women. I hope you're not either. But, if you have that, it's an in, because she's connected. Even if she is not the best looking, she's going to know people. She's going to have connections that she can introduce you to, and you have that in, right? You're not just a stranger. You're not just a foreigner. You're dating this girl. She trusts you, and therefore some of the people that she introduces you to will trust you as well. But we're getting sidetracked. The main point being is, if you want to stay and fight, then go ahead, right? But I already made the decision many years ago that I was going to leave, that I was going to take a chance on myself and do something completely different, which is another aspect of the video that's not discussed, right? Most people don't really have, unfortunately, the choice to just pack up and move. And if they are considering it, they're still looking at it from the lens of 20, 30 years ago where, oh, if I move somewhere else, I have to get a job there. You don't, as I have proven, right? I mean, I'm right here in Vilnius, and it's gorgeous. I could stay here. I could live here if I wanted to. But I hear the winter's pretty brutal here, even worse than Canada. So that's not going to be a long-term play for me, even though it's so far quite nice. What is that? Is that... I see some kind of... I thought it was a remote control car. It must be some kind of lawnmower? I'm not even sure. Let's take a look at it. Maybe it's some kind of surveillance device. You can take a... Where is it? There it is. I don't even know what that thing is. In any case, there's no need to stay in a place that's making you miserable, right? If anything, probably the most important thing, beyond the financial aspect, especially if you're a young man, for moving to a different country and for building a life, is the romantic prospects, right? If you don't want to have a family, if you've already decided that's on the cards for you, then cool, right? That's maybe not that important for you. And let's be real, a lot of guys in Gen Z have already checked out, which is great because it's less competition for guys like you and I. But if you really want to, you know, go out and find attractive, young, pleasant, educated women who are white, right? Or who are at least, those qualities. And if you're open to another race, then, all good. But I want my kids to be white, right? I want my partner in the future to have a very similar culture and look the same as me. Then I would highly recommend getting out. I would highly recommend setting your sights abroad, at least trying, right? It's one thing to say that, you're just going to stay put and you're going to fight, and that's what you've decided, right? You don't have any second thoughts about it. But it's a whole other ball game when you're deciding to do that, but at the back of your mind, you still want out. You still want to at least go and see what's out there, what you might be missing out on, which is what I totally recommend. That's why I did this. That's why I've been doing it now for, well, basically, come October, it'll have been 5 years. 5 years that I have not earned a single Canadian dollar in Canada. And thank God, because it's like Monopoly money now. It's that's a topic for another day. But life is short. If you're going to listen to some dude on YouTube tell you that you should just, pull yourself up by the bootstraps and, life isn't better anywhere else and you're going to have a really tough time assimilating and learning the language and you should stay and fight with your fellow countrymen and you can totally turn it around. Why? And who said it's even your responsibility as a young man, right? You had no say and no hand in creating anything that came before you. Let's just be real, both for the good and for the bad. You had no say in the immigration policy or in the economic policy. You had no say in how the government would treat you during COVID. It was just thrust upon you during some of the most formative years of your life when you're supposed to be going out, generally speaking, and making a name for yourself, learning skills, meeting new people, going out with chicks, and just becoming a more self-actualized human being. And if your country doesn't allow you to do that, then that's probably the number one argument for why you should get out. Right? Because if your country isn't giving you, now obviously you have to work, right? It's not just going to be handed to you on a silver platter, but even if you are doing genuine work and you're making an effort and you're not getting even half of the expected outcomes and rewards that your father, your grandfather did, then you seriously should look at doing things differently. Because if you're not living the life you want, and this isn't something I made up, this is something I heard from my old mentor, Victor Pride. You can look him up. Never mentored me personally, but I devoured his books and his content. If you're not living the life you want, then what's really more insane? Continuing to just do the same thing and listen to people who are no better off than you? Or daring to take a risk and do something different and get out and actually be a man, go out and get what you want? I know how I would answer.